So let's start this video off by saying I don't like Batman. Okay, so for the three of you that are still here, I will say that I have an obsession with collecting LEGO movie cars, and although I say I don't like Batman, it's mainly because of recent years, and I have seen films like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and I thought they were okay, and I love their depiction of the Batmobile in these films. The Batmobile has always been one of those more eccentric cars, almost like the Gadgetmobile, which by the way would be another awesome car, or something like James Bond's DB5. All the cool guys have to have some form of cool car, and I think in this film is the first time it's ever been like a tank. Definitely has made an impression on the big screen, as well as having several LEGO incarnations, but this one that we're looking at today has definitely got to be one of the best ones that LEGO has ever made. So as you can see, this is the Tumbler. Now this version of the Tumbler is actually from Batman Begins, based on the minifigures that we get for this set, and I must say I'm really glad that LEGO have decided to go back and give this one a final proper go, not giving us anything unnecessary in the set. All you get for £35 is the Tumbler and 2 minifigs. Honestly, I've been saying LEGO should do this sort of thing for a long while. You don't need any form of little side build or something for the Scarecrow to have. It's a waste of piece count and just goes to show that you can put all of your pieces into one basket and come out with something awesome. But before we take a more in-depth look at the Tumbler, I want to talk a little bit about these minifigures, as Batman has had so many incarnations of figure at this point that I sometimes find it difficult to tell different Batmans apart, but this one depicting the film is actually a really good representation, and I don't feel like it needs the printed legs, so I'm glad they didn't waste it with this one. I know I complain a lot about my Marvel figures not having leg printing, but I usually say this sort of thing when Marvel figures deserve the leg printing and they didn't get it. In this case, the minifig would have only had a few extra lines to add to the leg printing, and it wouldn't have been worth doing. It would have mostly been just a black leg. So I'm glad they didn't put any form of leg printing on here. I think it would have just been a waste, and I'm glad they're prioritizing other figures. And besides, most of the time you're going to be displaying this figure in the set, and then you're never really going to see the figure apart from his head. Speaking of the figure's head, now this has the same generic face print as normal Batman figures, and it definitely works for the set. However, I think this smiling one really doesn't work. It reminds me more about the LEGO Batman films, which I assume is because they use the same face print. Would have loved to see some form of alternative face that wasn't a smile, but if I'm honest, I'm happy with the scowl, and besides, they include an alternative head in this set, which depicts Batman in the visions that he was having. If I'm honest, I can't remember a lot about this film, so you just have to bear with me. But overall, it's a really nice head with a really nice face print. I especially like the fact that you can take the mask off and it will reveal some minifig eyes. As these minifigs' eyes do not align with the face mask, it's nice that they've included 2 little extra dots to make the face mask actually have pupils as well. As for the Scarecrow, he's a fairly standard figure. Again, there's no leg printing, and the head is really the most superior part about this figure. However, I would have still loved to see some form of molded mask or something along those lines instead of just a printed minifig head, but I also understand that would have driven up the cost for not necessarily a minifigure that people actually care about as part of this Tumbler set. There's a potential that we could get some form of other Scarecrow in future sets, as like Marvel, I'd like to see them go back and do more of these Batman Begins and Dark Knight sets to give us more accurate minifigures as well as more accurate sets. And the reason I'm not saying the third one is because I haven't actually seen it. But let's actually turn our heads towards the Tumbler itself, and might I just say, this set is amazing. LEGO designer, you get a tip of the hat from me. As somebody who collects a lot of movie cars, I can see the attention to detail on trying to get most of these angles correct, as it's a very angular vehicle, something that I can imagine would be very difficult to translate into something like LEGO bricks. The part usage is pretty damn stellar if I'm honest, and some of the techniques used on the internal of the model to try and get some of these angles was overall just a really fun building experience. Nothing felt repetitive, and it even allowed me for easy light install. Not only does the set actually look like the Tumbler, it can also hold 2 minifigs, has a well thought out interior, and overall is a very sturdy build. I want to say when I bought these sets, I didn't expect this set to be so good. I've seen a lot of the older Tumblers in the past, and the reason I actually bought this one instead of buying the other ones is this is the first one in my opinion that truly does look like it's been straight up taken out of the film. My only giant worry when looking at the box art for this set was something I like to call the Ironmonger effect. And this effect is taking a cheaper set and making it slightly oversized to make it more kid-friendly, to the point where it gets so big that it's no longer size accurate to the minifigs that is included with it. Can you see why I call it the Ironmonger effect? And even though a minifigure, yes, does look fairly silly on top of this car, it really doesn't look out of place when you place it next to any other cars. So if you're planning to integrate this car into anything like a Lego city, yes, it's going to take up an entire road, but it's not going to look out of place next to your other cars. And overall, that's a really good thing. I can't see this car being tailored as minifig scale. I mean, here's Batman in comparison to just one of the back wheels, but it's good enough to the point where it will fit in with pretty much anything you want to do with it. Like I said before, this car is incredibly angled, incredibly detailed. I really like how the stud shooters are actually integrated into the front of this model, and I also like that the sticker sheet doesn't go over the top, and the only stickers included in this set are ones that help bring out detail that would just be physically impossible to do in brick build. I also really like the fact that this car uses basically 3 windshields on it, so even though these 3 windshields are kind of encased in a bunch of Lego bricks, and I'm happy to say the roof is not on just a flimsy plate. This is actually a really sturdy connection, which means that you're going to have no problems opening and closing this, get your minifigures in and out from. Anything I will say is there's no form of seat in there. You're putting your minifigure directly on studs. It means you may have the issue like I had before I put a lighting kit in this, where the minifigure would come out without his legs. That's an issue I'm very happy to overlook, considering that the interior is pretty damn good as well. The indication of a steering wheel and some just gadgets and dials, something that I really don't think that you're going to be really looking for when you look at a set like this. The only issue I've managed to find with this tumbler is the fact that the spoiler keeps falling off. It only falls off if you press down on it too hard, if you hold it in the wrong way, so just make sure you stay clear of that spoiler if you're planning on picking this set up. This set really does feel like it's in its own league of Lego cars. I'm really glad that they included this as a £35 set into their lineup. It really does look like they're trying to do different generations of Batmobiles, considering we had the 60s one before this, as minifig scale cars, which is a really cool concept. I'd like to see them dabble more about this in other themes. They've done it before with the Tron bikes and the Ghostbusters car. I think this is another clear example of them being able to make a cool Lego set. Doesn't necessarily have a high piece count, is also on the cheaper side. I'd love for Lego to do more things like this, and also, as like I said, I'm an avid collector of Lego movie cars. I also am very interested to see how this one compares to the larger one that we have coming in November. A set that I'd be very interested to take a look at, as you can do all the brick built detail that you couldn't necessarily do with this one. I've heard a lot of people say that this £35 version of this set is a lot better than the bigger £200 one that we've got coming out later on down the line. I've also seen a lot of people comparing it to the older one, and considering I never had that set, I'd be very interested to see what the new one's like from not having that set's perspective. But I think overall, the big question of this £35 Batmobile is, did I waste my money? And if you guys are thinking about picking this one up, should you spend your hard-earned money on it as well? Overall, for somebody who hasn't collected a lot of Lego Batman, maybe I'm not the best person to answer that question in terms of comparing it to other sets in the past, but in terms of just this set alone and my experience with it, I highly say that this set is definitely worth buying for £35. If you can find it on sale, then that's just a bonus. If you're a car collector in any form, or you like Batman, I highly recommend you picking up this set. I'd say this is one of the first sets that I'm actually happy about picking up the build of this set, rather than buying a set like this just to get my hands on those minifigs, which now that I think about it, I do a lot. But that's the video. What do you guys think about this Batmobile set? Are you guys going to pick it up October 1st? Or are you guys holding out for that bigger version that we got coming out early November? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks to all the members that make these types of videos possible, and I will speak to you guys in the next video. Goodbye.